I still remember the smell of salt and fish that filled our small house each evening. My father would return from the sea, his weathered hands carrying the day's catch while my mother prepared the rice cooker. Their routine never changed in our tiny coastal town of Oshika, where the boats docked at sunset and everyone knew your family going back 3 generations. "Rina, stop playing with that broken radio and help set the table," my mother would say, pulling me away from the electronic parts scattered across our living room floor. I was always the odd one out in our village of 2,000 people. While other kids played by the shore, I took apart old electronics, trying to understand the magic inside them. This is the story of how a small-town girl from a family of fishermen found her way into creating digital worlds, and how my roots became my greatest creative strength. In Oshika, life moved with the tides. My ancestors had fished these waters for over 200 years. My father expected I'd marry a local boy, perhaps work at the fish processing plant like many women in our town. Education meant practical skills, not video games or computers. "What will you do with these games?" my grandmother asked when I saved my allowance for a used Nintendo DS. "They won't put food on your table." She wasn't trying to hurt me. She simply couldn't see beyond the boundaries of our town, where survival meant following tradition. But at night, I'd play under my covers until my batteries died, fascinated by how these little cartridges could create entire universes. My parents noticed my interest but couldn't afford a computer. When I turned 16, I worked summers helping tourists who came to experience authentic Japanese fishing culture. I saved 78,000 yen, about $700, and bought my first laptop, a clunky, second-hand machine that often overheated. I taught myself basic programming through free online courses, connecting to the internet at our town's only library. The connection was painfully slow, often cutting out when too many people used it at once. I'd download tutorials to watch offline at home, staying up past midnight to absorb everything I could. My English teacher, Mrs. Tanaka, was the first person who encouraged me. "Rina, Tokyo University has an excellent computer science program. Have you thought about applying?" I hadn't. No one from our town went to Tokyo University. Most didn't leave at all. The 600-kilometer leap, the entrance exam, was brutal. I studied during fishing trips with my father, textbooks protected in plastic bags to keep them dry. I practiced English while helping my mother prepare fish for market. When the acceptance letter arrived, my parents stared at it silently. "Tokyo is 600 kilometers away," my father said finally. "It's an expensive city." My mother placed her hand on his. "But it's her future, Takashi." They sold my father's second fishing boat to help pay for my education. The boat had been in our family for 30 years. The sacrifice still brings tears to my eyes when I think about it. Tokyo was a shock to my system. The crowded trains, the endless concrete, the pace of life, everything moved so fast. My accent marked me as an outsider, and my classmates from big cities had years of computer experience I lacked. My dorm room was smaller than my bedroom at home, shared with a girl from Osaka who filled the tiny space with designer clothes. I felt outclassed in every way. The first programming assignment came back covered in red marks. I had coded everything the long way, unaware of the elegant shortcuts my classmates used. I called home that night. "Maybe I made a mistake," I told my mother. "Maybe I should come home." My father took the phone. "Rina, remember when I taught you to fish? The first time, you couldn't even bait the hook. Did you give up then?" I didn't. I stayed. By my second year, I had caught up with my classmates. I joined the game development club and found my calling. While others created futuristic space battles or fantasy worlds, I built a fishing simulation game. The ocean physics weren't perfect, but I coded weather patterns based on my hometown's seasonal changes. "This is refreshingly different," my professor said during our showcase. "Everyone else is copying what already exists. You're bringing something new to the table." A small gaming company offered me an internship my junior year. I spent weekends learning their systems while keeping up with classes. The office never closed. Developers slept under desks during crunch time, surviving on convenience store food and coffee. When I graduated, they offered me a job as a junior developer. The salary was 3.5 million yen, around $32,000, more money than my parents had ever seen, but modest by Tokyo standards. Still, I called home with pride. I'm designing games, Dad. Real ones that people will play. Reality proved harder than the dream. The hours were brutal. I often worked from 9 a.m. until midnight. My team was all men, many who viewed women developers with skepticism. In meetings, my ideas were overlooked until a male colleague repeated them. "That coastal village game concept isn't commercial enough," my manager said when I pitched my first original idea. "Players want excitement, not fishing villages." I nodded and kept my head down. But at night, in my tiny apartment, I continued developing my concept. I stayed awake until 3 a.m. many nights, building a prototype about a girl in a fishing village who discovers a magical underwater world. After 2 years of corporate game development, I was burning out. The games we made felt hollow, copies of whatever was trendy, designed to maximize profit rather than create meaningful experiences. During a rare visit home, I walked along the shore with my father as he checked his nets before dawn. "The sea is never the same 2 days in a row," he said. "That's why fishing never gets boring. You have to pay attention to the smallest changes." Something clicked. The games I worked on felt empty because they lacked the authenticity of real experience. They were designed by people who spent their lives in front of screens, not living in the world. I returned to Tokyo with renewed purpose. I quit my job, a decision that shocked my parents, and joined a small independent game studio that encouraged developer originality. My first major project as lead designer was Tide Whispers, a game about a coastal community's relationship with the sea spirits that both blessed and challenged their fishing village. I infused it with the rhythms of life I knew, the seasonal festivals, the superstitions of old fishermen, the tension between tradition and modernization. When we released the game, I braced for failure. Instead, it found an audience hungry for something authentic. Gaming blogs praised its unique cultural perspective and meditative gameplay. One review said, "In a market flooded with copycat games, Tide Whispers feels like a breath of fresh ocean air." Sales weren't massive, but they were steady. People from around the world sent messages saying the game reminded them of their own small hometowns, regardless of whether those towns were in Michigan, Brazil, or Scotland. Last year, I returned to Osaka to install a small computer lab in our local school. The 12 computers cost me 1.8 million yen, about $16,000, money I had saved from my game royalties. The children gathered around as I showed them how to create simple games, their eyes wide with the same wonder I had felt years ago. One girl stayed after class, carefully placing a character she had drawn into the game engine. "I want to make games about our town too," she said. "But with ninjas," I laughed. "Why not? Games can be anything we imagine." My parents attended the ribbon-cutting ceremony for the computer lab. My father, now retired from fishing, watched as I showed the children how to program a digital fishing boat that responded to weather patterns. "You found your own way to fish," he said quietly. Now at 23, I lead a team developing games that bridge traditional Japanese culture with modern gameplay. We're currently working on a game set in a future where small fishing communities use advanced technology to protect ocean ecosystems while maintaining their cultural heritage. When I get stuck on a design problem, I still think of my village. I remember how the fishermen would gather to repair nets together, everyone contributing their skills to solve a common problem. I bring that collaborative spirit to my team. Life in Tokyo remains different from my hometown. The pace is faster, the connections more fleeting. But each morning as I start my computer, I keep a small jar of Oshika sea salt on my desk, a reminder that the most powerful stories come from knowing who you are and where you're from. If you've ever felt caught between two worlds, tradition and innovation, small town and big city, family expectations and personal dreams, know that the gap between them isn't as wide as it seems. These worlds can talk to each other through you. Your unique perspective isn't a weakness. It's your superpower. Will you use it?